Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal, and the next expansion of World of Warcraft, Midnight, is bringing with it a ton of new changes. Of course, there's brand new zones to explore, brand new content to dive into, so many class changes on the horizon, but they're also looking to overhaul the game in a much more of a comprehensive way by giving WoW a big UI overhaul, which is very much needed and was sorely missed for a very long time, and it looks like they're finally implementing it as part of the Midnight expansion. A part of this effort is to convert some of the most popular add-ons that players use in day-to-day gameplay as part of basic in-game features. So like damage meters and boss alerts is going to be something that will be natively integrated into the base game. The revamp is here mostly to help clean up your screen space a little bit. Not only are they able to make the UI easier to look at and easier to read going forward, and some of the previews they have for it do look really good, but also to give players more contextual important information like being able to play your class a little bit better. You need to have an easier time watching certain ability procs, or if let's say a certain enemy is about to wipe your group, it should be really easy and clear to see which enemy needs to be shut down as soon as possible. From the screenshots and previews, it does feel like they're putting in a lot of effort into revamping the UI design for Midnight, and it's very exciting to see. So for today's video, I really wanted to go over and take a closer look at all of the different UI and in-game add-on improvements that will be part of the Midnight expansion. As always, if you guys want to see more regular updates, especially with Midnight Alpha potentially approaching oh so soon, be sure to follow the channel and subscribe. But otherwise, let's dive right in. So first things first, let's go over some of the most impactful changes coming to the UI that is a must-have, and one of them being is nameplates. Already you can see a bunch of trained dummies and Dornagal stacked together, and you can see how the nameplates are just blending in. You know what I mean? Like, unless you have a good angle, they really do end up getting mushed together pretty easily, and that's just with 5 enemies. But when you have like a pool where you have, I don't know, 8 mobs, 10 mobs, 15 mobs, 25 mobs together, you can't tell who is who. And while I'm mostly okay with Blizzard health bars just because they're like, you know, like nice meaty little health bar that changes in color in PvP and has this like, you know, just a coloration for PvE content, they've never really been that good to make them stand out from like the elite enemies to like some casters. And that is a big thing they're trying to change going forward, is with some brand new nameplates, as the base nameplates are just not that good, and a lot of the times this is one of the first few things that when you're trying to get better at, like Mythic Plus in particular, changing the nameplates for various casters and elites and various different enemies helps you get more information, and that is something they essentially want to add onto your screen. And in fact, it's coming up with some big improvements like status effects around the frame itself, as players will be able to see even more information. Players will be able to see debuffs on the target. So if you're a class that's like very heavy into dot tracking, it'll be easier for you to see who has dots and who doesn't. You'll be able to see mob buffs. If an enemy is empowered, you'll be able to see actual buffs across their health bars as well. So it makes it a little bit easier to tell which enemies are empowered, as well as shared crowd control, which will share with crowd control that is currently on that target. Really useful for PvP content. And most importantly, these health bars will now, nameplates rather, will now have different cast glows on certain casts, like enemies that have very simple, not important, not deadly casts that will wipe your group or will do some kind of like a volley attack. Those will just be a simple cast that needs uninterrupted. But then there'll be those very important casts that are highlighted, and you will be able to easily see exactly what it looks like. And I think this is really good to be able to like separate the two. I'm really hoping that the important casts will have an animation and they'll be very loud in your face just to make it easier for players to see them. However, I am hoping that they'll do an effect where, let's say, if you have an enemy with a very scary cast bar, that will be highlighted and pushed to the front of all the other health bars, no matter where it's at. Like, I can track this enemy right here now that I'm highlighting him, and no matter where I position him, I always see that health bar. I am hoping they'll add this like push-up effect where it'll push up above everything so you can easily noticeably see those casts in particular. And that is the one thing I am hoping out of all the changes they do for nameplates, if they can do this where it just gets highlighted and easier to see, easier to target, easier to pick out whenever there's a scary cast coming from a mob. If they can do that, then I think they'll actually, the nameplate improvement for Midnight will be a massive success in my opinion. Now, another set of popular UI that has been adjusted and adapted for Midnight is damage meters, and this is an add-on that everybody uses. Everybody has some sort of a DPS meter. Most players use details. Some that played way back in the day that maybe just like the look of it still use recount. SCADA at some point was very, very popular, but details is generally what most players use nowadays, just because it's very detailed. But just the ability to give players the breakdown of what abilities hit hard. I don't know how detailed Blizz is going to make the details. However, they really could make him absolutely the most detailed thing in the world. Probably more detailed than details themselves, as their version of damage meters would actually be using server-side data for added accuracy. One of the cool things that I really like about details in particular is looking at the different auras, right? Debuffs or buffs. This is very helpful when you're watching like for trinket procs, a proc trinket to see how often it's up, so you can gauge how actually effective it is. You can do some simple math to find out how much actual stat gains you might be getting out of it, if it's actually worth it or not really. Like those kind of little info like this is very, very important to see. Being able to compare information against other classes as well, also pretty important. And I don't know if Blizz is actually going to go that detailed. I'm hoping there'll be some details with auras and things, but potentially they could give you even more detailed information since it's server side. Like augmentation evokers normally have to use these like webhooks on logs in order to display their data accurately, but potentially they could be using the Blizzard's damage meters to display their like damage contribution, quote unquote, through the buff mechanic and be actually given more accurate information as to how much contribution to the group is augmentation really doing in the moment. So stuff like this could be really, really cool to see, to have be in natively. It is definitely going to be one of those quality of life improvements that could potentially be better than the original details add-on or any of the damage tracker add-ons are at the moment. Now, another set of add-ons that's a must-have is boss alerts. Bigwigs and DBM are very, very popular add-ons that can help new players and players inexperienced with content, give them little reminders and pointers as to what you should be doing in a raid fight. WoW for the longest time was a game where you had to learn manually with wipes of what you're supposed to do with a boss fight, and now you can condense a lot of information into alerts telling players like, hey, spread out for this mechanic, stack together, ready to interrupt, a big boss shockwave ability is incoming, things like that. And they can give it some context clues to be able to better adapt to some of those encounters, and they essentially want to add boss alerts as part of a baseline in-game feature. And their boss alerts are going to be such where it will actually display your alerts like a blaze storm is coming, a charge is about to happen, or if certain players are marked with certain abilities to give you clues as to like, hey, you're actually getting focused on right now by the boss. This could allow you to potentially position better or maybe possibly pop a defensive and give you enough contextual clues to let you know that something is happening and you better do something right now in the moment. But it does make me wonder, just like with the damage meter add-on, how detailed and robust will this messaging system be? And there's potentially they could do some really cool stuff with it. Like certain abilities you gotta stack for and others you gotta spread for. And sometimes when a player gets hit with a circle, you can't really tell if it's like a circle where you gotta jump in to help them split the damage or run away because that's just gonna wipe everybody near that player. And I think stuff like that would be very, very helpful for like a warning message. There's also different types of charges in the game, and right now actually in back to Manaforge Omega, there is an encounter with Soul Hunters where there's a charge mechanic that normally players want to move away from, but you actually want to have some players soak it. It is the hunt ability. So giving players more information for mechanics like this, I think would be very, very helpful. And I wonder if they'll add any customization for how you'll be able to customize those messages, or if there'll be like adjustments based on the difficulty of an encounter. And I think there's some really cool stuff they could really do to at least help newer players have a better chances at countering these mechanics correctly in the moment. Of course, there's also going to be a ton more quality of life improvements, and apparently part of those improvements are already in the patch 11.2.5, which is up for testing on PTR, mostly for Legion Remix, but apparently there's going to be even more stuff coming out. One of them being personal resource bar, and actually you'll be able to customize that resource bar in the future. I am a fan of the personal resource bar, and I need to go and turn off the basics in order for you to see it. But this bar down below that actually shows you some casts, some procs, some abilities. I use it pretty regularly on my rogue. It allows me to track things like Roll the Bones buff, which there are numerous buffs. Then it allows you to track different effects like Storm Frenzy, Call of the Ancestors. If you get any other damage procs whatsoever, it'll actually tell you those abilities are up, while also letting you watch your health bar and your resource bar in the middle. I know that I have my health bar down here anyway, but because of these buffs up here, it's just a lot easier to look kind of towards the center of my screen, see what buffs I have, see what resources I have, and make gameplay adjustments afterwards. And I find that very, very useful, at least when it comes to my day-to-day gameplay. And they're actually going to let you move this bar around, because normally it's just stuck under your character, but they'll let you move it anywhere you want to. So that's going to be one of those nice quality of life improvements that I personally cannot wait for. Then the cooldown manager update, which is actually live right now over in the PTR. So that is something we can test out at the moment, as it does some decent advanced settings with it. Now, without optimizing the cooldown manager, it is a little bit messy looking, but they're further trying to amplify the effectiveness of the cooldown manager through other means, where you'll be able to customize it a lot better. And there's a couple of different variations of this, like there's the bar, you got also a variety of different proc abilities as you're collecting procs, like those will actually get accumulated with the various part of your screen. And if you want to see more or less what they will look like, there it is. Utility cooldowns, essential cooldowns, track buffs, and track bars. And they are apparently giving you an opportunity to customize these a lot better, and that is something you can test right now over on the PTR with advanced settings. Now, to enable those, you'll go to Gameplay Enhancement, Advanced cooldown settings, and now you can actually shift around which abilities are going to be part of these various windows. Now, the way that they're separating cooldowns for the most part is essential cooldowns are like your basic day-to-day combat rotations, usually anything that is offensive in damage, and then your utility cooldowns are usually anything that's defensive, like all of your different totems, bloodlust, and things like that. However, you don't need to track all of these at all times. Like, I don't really need to know when the lightning bolt is available for my essential cooldowns, technically, but it's here and it kind of clogs up a lot of space. Maybe I want to track lava burst charges, but like, I don't really need to know if chain lightning or lightning bolt are available. Maybe I don't even need to know if earthshock is available, because it just costs resources. It doesn't actually have a cooldown. Same thing with earthquake. So what you can actually do with this new set of changes is in the cooldown settings, you can actually move these bars around between utility and essential, but also you can turn them off as well. So if you just want to remove lightning bolt from your bars, maybe remove earthshock, chain lightning, earthquakes, remove elemental blast as well. For me, ascendance is kind of a big cooldown, kind of a major cooldown, so maybe I want to keep this bar very light with very short term CDs. So I'd want to move maybe ascendance to utility cooldown, same with storm elemental. So this will be my major cooldowns. This will be my combat abilities. Anything that I need to track that is like, okay, as soon as it's called cooldown, I need to use it. Now have the bar a lot more like neater looking in general. It looks really good. And maybe in utility cooldowns, there's some abilities that I need to track, but not all. Like maybe I don't really need to know when a healing stream totem is available, to be honest. Earthbind, it's up pretty regularly. I don't really need to know when that is going to be up. So now you can clean up things like your major combat abilities. You can just track them pretty regularly. And then all the other utilitarian abilities, you can also condense them. So you can see all of your offenses, see all of your defenses, and take out a lot of the bloat that you wouldn't really necessarily need. And this can actually work for buffs as well, as you have track buffs as well as track bars. If let's say you want to have some of these abilities be a bar instead of just like an icon, you can basically switch them around in any way you want to, and you have a number of abilities that you can now track here. So if you want to, let's say, track ascendance properly, you can now add ascendance to one of those ability rosters that you'll be able to track. If you want to just make sure that you're getting the most amount of value out of ascendance when it procs, you can now just add it here on your bars if that's what you're looking to do. Or things like Master of Elements, right? Whenever you cast in Lava Burst, you empower your next nature or your frost ability. That is normally not tracked by the game at all, so now you can just add it to the track buffs, and now whenever it pops up, you can tell that it's there and it's available. And there's a number of other skills you can track here, like Storm Swell from your Tempest, for example, Lightning Conduit, Electroshock, talents like Liquid Magma Totem, Brimming with Life proc, if that's what you're looking to do. Like, they added a lot of abilities for you to be able to track all of nowhere. Totem of Wrath for PvP, if you're just looking to track that whenever it's possible. Counter-Strike Totem, and how long that's going to be made available for. A lot of the little procs that you would look for now can be tracked in these bars instead. So there's a lot more customizability here completely, and you can remove them, adjust them, place them as icons or as bars, and it just becomes a lot easier for you to track all of these things at the same time. So in general, this is a much better way for you to be able to better customize your UI to put up a lot more information that you would find useful or relevant to you when it comes to your day-to-day gameplay. So this is a good change overall. That being said, I still don't think it's perfect. What I like about weak auras, and something that I don't know if Blizzard will ever really be able to compete against, is the fact that you can just customize every little component of your gameplay. How many stacks a certain ability has. Once it reaches certain stacks, it has a glow on your screen. So let's say you just need to, there's some abilities that you don't really need to use regularly as part of day-to-day combat until it reaches a certain stack, and once it does, then you want to press it. That is something that you can add contextual value towards when it comes to you customizing your UI and your build in general. So that is still an advantage of using add-ons like weak auras to further customize all those nitty-gritty little things. This has definitely done a huge leap when it comes to the choices of how you're able to customize your setup with the advancements to the cooldown manager, but I still think it could be a little better. One thing that cooldown manager cannot track at all in any way possible is trinkets. Like, if there are some trinkets that you're trying to track the cooldown for, the proc rate for, the uptime for, those could be huge and crucial when it comes to day-to-day gameplay of like maximizing your DPS. Conditionals would also be really good to see. Like, if let's say lava burst is sending out 3 charges, and that's something you never want to do as an elemental shaman, you should have a very, very aggressive glow when it's at 3 charges, and maybe that glow could be like, I don't know, softened at 2 charges, like a warning glow, like, hey, you're about to cap, you better use a lava burst. And if you are sitting at 3 stacks, you're like, hey, send this ability immediately, kind of a glow. If they could add conditionals like this, that'll be insane, because that is something that is still missing for the time being. I don't really know if they'll go about doing it. I don't even know if WoW's engine is that robust to be able to add things like this. One of the ways that could also bypass it is by simplifying a lot of the class design a little bit. Like, if classes don't need to have a billion things that you need to track at all times just to be able to play a class optimally, that could also go a long way as well, and that'll be more of a design issue rather than a UI issue at that point. But in my opinion, it is still fair to say that a lot of these UI improvements are very much needed, especially for your basic day-to-day casual players who always go through the rigmarole of you start playing the game, start doing content, you find out you need at least like 20 different add-ons and a bunch of weak auras in order to be able to play your class even somewhat optimally. So at least being able to give those tools to the players immediately, I think is going to be good, and their potential to be able to make those tools better, more defined, and better to read, easier to read is also huge. It really just depends on how much effort they're going to put into those add-ons, but I think that at the very least, the changes we're getting to all of the different add-ons, like with in-game add-ons, is looking very, very promising overall. But with that, as always, I do want to thank all of you guys so much for watching, and hope you guys did enjoy this update. If you did enjoy it or found it informative, go ahead and give this video a like, as I would very much appreciate it, as likes right now in the YouTube beta do help the videos reach a wider audience, so that will be helpful for me tremendously. Also, be sure to join our Discord community, especially if you want to keep up with any future content updates, like any new future additions or changes for Legion Remix, for instance, on BTR, or for Midnight Alpha, whenever that becomes playable. Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below, and as always, I'll see all of you guys in the next one.